Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Go 24/7 podcast. My name is Glen West, senior writer here at the site. Scott Woodward out as your athletic director, Verge Ausberry in as the interim athletic director, and who will be leading LSU football's coaching search here going forward. Here to break it all down, essentially, here what's transpired over the last couple days, but something that I think if you've been following for a little while, you kind of maybe had seen could see coming, and LSU pulls the trigger on Thursday night to move on from its athletic director Scott Woodward, who has been at that post really since 2019, and done some good things, but football trumps all, and I think that's at the very center of what this decision has come down to. But before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of what happened and where LSU kind of goes from here, we just kind of like to first off by saying, please, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're following along there, just to please comment and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That always helps us out. Like the video and things of that nature. Then on our podcast form, certainly if you could subscribe to our podcast and kind of share, like and share and everything to kind of help grow that out as much as possible. So with that being said, we'd like to kind of take you guys through a timeline of maybe what happened on Wednesday afternoon and then kind of into Thursday, which ultimately led to the mutual parting of ways between Scott Woodward and LSU athletics here. This was like I said, a decision that I think you probably could have seen coming after LSU fired head coach Brian Kelly. On Sunday after the Texas A&M loss, Joe Sloan was also subsequently let go of his duties, and LSU's since had to go through a little bit of a reshuffling of its coaching staff. And I think just in the days since, there's been a lot of conversations about what Woodward's future would hold and what his decision-making process would look like going forward as LSU looked for its next head coach. And certainly when you're talking about Louisiana politics and LSU, there's never a dull moment. And I think what we saw this week was Governor Jeff Landry making his opinions very public and very felt about what he thought the future of LSU football and LSU athletics should look like. And Scott Woodward was very clearly not a part of that future. And so we're going to break kind of down the timeline of events here. Essentially on Wednesday, Governor Landry was giving a press conference, and he was asked about the impending coaching search and the situation with Scott Woodward. And he basically said under no uncertain terms that Woodward would not be making the decision to be to hire LSU's next football coach. And I think that really was kind of the benchmark, or I guess the title mark as to what would transpire over the next 24 hours. He ended up doubling down on that opinion on an interview on ESPN. He went on a local radio show on 104.5 with Matt Moscona and tripled down on that opinion with Woodward. And so by that time, I think all the wheels were kind of already in motion about what Woodward's future was going to be at LSU, and that he honestly would not be a part of the future of making that decision for LSU going forward. And I think it's important to kind of give kind of a broad analysis of what Scott Woodward's tenure here was at LSU. This is a guy who came in 6-7 years ago when the program was really at a very high, right? I mean, you had the all-time great football season that he was a part of, or that he, kind of entered and got to witness, front and center. But this was a Louisiana guy, somebody who obviously had spent a good amount of time in Baton Rouge and growing up a Tiger fan and, wanting to, I think this ultimately becoming his dream job was the athletic director of LSU. And look, he did some good things here. I don't think there's anybody that would negate that. He was ultimately the one that signed off on Jay Johnson, the baseball coach, being hired several years ago, and that's netted 2 championships in the last 3 years. He was obviously very formidable in getting Kim Mulkey away from Baylor, and she wins a national title in her second year. Jay Clark, the gymnastics coach, won a national championship with Woodward and kind of under his watch as the athletic director. So he's been able to attract championship coaches in his career. And at the end of the day, though, this is going to be a tenure that is remembered, I think, for those things, but it's also going to be remembered for, the football side of things. And that's obviously what trumps all here. And I think a major part of what went into this decision, hiring Brian Kelly to a 10-year contract, guaranteeing 90% of that contract to him, and now less than 4 years into that tenure, LSU firing Kelly and now being on the hook for a $53 million buyout for Kelly over the next 6-7 years, however long they are going to structure that out. Those negotiations are still ongoing from what we understand, but I'm sure all that will be hashed out in due time. But I think that was kind of the meat of what this decision ultimately went towards. I think Governor Landry's opinion here also weighs heavily because, look, at the end of the day, the Board of Supervisors are a group that kind of makes a lot of the big decisions at LSU, and a lot of those people have been appointed by Governor Landry since he took office in 2023. I would imagine that there are going to be more Board of Supervisors that are appointed to LSU by Landry and his cabinet over the next couple of years as well, or however long he's governor of Louisiana. But look, I think at the end of the day, my overwhelming thought leaving this is that this just could have been really avoided. Like LSU could have ultimately decided to move on from Scott Woodward. Like that is, something that very well could have happened. I think the hastiness of this was certainly driven up by the governor's comments this week, and certainly the trajectory of the future of the LSU athletics was also driven by some of those comments that he made this week as well. So now you're in a position here where you don't have a school president. That's going to be announced on Tuesday. Now you're out your head coach and your athletic director in the span of about 5 days. The national media, the national attention on this story has really kind of overtaken the sport in a lot of different ways this week. I guess it's a good thing that LSU is on their bye week this week because we've had a lot of time to digest this and report on it and get all the facts and information here. But look, at the end of the day, LSU has major decisions and major question marks about those decisions that are going to have to be answered in the weeks and months to come. On Friday morning, I guess I should back up a little bit. On Thursday evening, they officially put out the statement that Woodward and LSU would be parting ways. Scott Woodward, penned a letter to LSU fans, basically, saying, and this is paraphrasing here a little bit, that he's very proud of the work that they did in his time here, building championship programs across the school. He didn't, he understands that there's going to be, opines about what he did from a football perspective. And, that's not something that he really wanted to get into, but that he loved LSU and he loved this place and he wanted to be a part of this place going forward. And obviously that, just didn't transpire in a lot of ways because I think of this coaching hire that he made for football. And so, look, you look ahead here with, you guess you flash forward a couple minutes later, they put out the press conference statement. They put out a statement that Verge Ausberry is going to be the guy leading this charge for the next coach. And I think that's maybe where we have to kind of transition here into looking at the future, because there were a lot of things said here in this press conference on Friday that I find very interesting and very telling and very, ultimately are going to give us, I think, some semblance of how LSU is going to be attacking this coaching search, because I do think that once this president of the university is officially, announced on Tuesday, he'll be a factor in this as well. But from everything that we know and everything that we've heard, Verge Ausberry is going to be leading this charge. He's a guy that's been, like Woodward in some ways. He grew up in New Iberia. He's grown up a big-time LSU fan. He came to school here, was a two-time leading tackler for LSU, and had a lot of success as a player, came back as an administrator and kind of had to work his way up. And he's been around for 24 years. I mean, he's been around for the Nick Saban era. He's been around for, Les Miles, Ed Orgeron, and now most recently the Brian Kelly era. So he's intimate with this place. He knows this place, better than most. And he knows, I think, he's seen what it takes to win at the highest level at this place. And so I think this was the right move for LSU to make, considering they were going to move on from Scott Woodward here. And now it's just about, okay, what does this process now look like for LSU? And that's kind of what I want to talk about here next. Is I think LSU is going to be in a spot where they have to answer a lot of questions for a lot of these coaches that are going to be candidates for this job. Usually when you're an athletic director, that relationship between the athletic director and the head coach of football is immensely important. And with that kind of being up in the air right now, that's going to be something LSU is going to have to answer in these meetings with these potential candidates. Like, if Ausberry is not the permanent guy, how do I feel coming into that situation, knowing that there's going to be another athletic director that's brought in here eventually, and how will I jive with that future administrator? So those are that's a big picture question that I think is going to certainly pop up in a lot of these conversations. But just to kind of get into a little bit of the nitty gritty of who's going to be leading this search, certainly it's going to be Ausberry. I think when you look at the committee that they are going to put together, it's going to include Chairman Scott Ballard. It's going to include board member John Carmouche, Ben Bordelon, who is a former player and now a CEO of Bollinger Shipyards, is also going to be involved in this process. And then Our Lady of the Lake CEO, E.J. Kuiper, is also going to be involved in this decision-making process for LSU's next head coach. Look, I think there are a couple things here. You certainly would love, I think, to have some more football minds in this cabinet and this committee that's going to be looking for LSU's next head coach. They did mention that there was another member of this that has not exactly been named yet, who will be a part of this committee. Hopefully that's somebody that has a sharp eye on coaching and on football, and kind of knows the inner workings of how to go about getting the best head coach in here for LSU. But that person's name has not been released yet. And I think that kind of transitions here into what kind of conversations are going to be taking place between this committee and these potential candidates that they're going to go after for their coaching, for their head coaching and football hire. I think for me, one of the big things that needed to be said and needed to be confirmed in this press conference was that Louisiana and the taxpayers are not going to be on the hook for any of this, for Brian Kelly's buyout, for Scott Woodward's buyout, for the potential hire of this next coach. That is all money that will be privately donated and funded by the Tiger Athletic Foundation, by private donors. And I think there was a general understanding of that, I think, from a fan base perspective, but certainly something that they needed to clarify, I think, in this press conference on Friday. And it was important to do so because, the governor, Jeff Landry, had talked earlier this week about those, in the contract of Brian Kelly. It talks a little bit in its entirety in paper and in bold print, which he's not wrong about, that if somebody does not come forward and foot that bill, then Louisiana taxpayers would have been, they would be taking on the brunt of that $53 million buyout. So that's not the case, though. LSU does have private donors. They do have the Tiger Athletic Foundation, and Carmouche and Ballard both said today that all of those finances, all that revenue stream will be coming from private donations from, obviously very wealthy people who want to see the future of this program look much, much better going forward. So where does that now leave LSU? Look, I think there's still a lot more up in the air as we kind of move forward here. I still think, one of the messages that Verge Ausberry wanted to relay today in this press conference was that he doesn't believe this athletic department is broken. He doesn't believe LSU is fractured in any kind of way. He's been a part of winning. He knows what winning looks like, and they're going to go out there and they're going to have all the resources necessary to go out and find the best head coach available. And so I think that was another piece to this. He was asked, I think another big part of this week's conversation was kind of centered around the incentive-based parts of these contracts and how eventually I think college football as a whole would love to get to a world where there's still a strong base salary for some of these coaches, but they're also heavily incentivized in their contracts to do based on their production and what the team accomplishes. And so that was a question that was posed by the governor earlier this week. I think it's a very fair and very right conversation to have. It was also asked on Friday morning in the press conference about whether that would be a factor. Would that be a sticking point with whoever the next head coach is? That there would be some kind of incentive-based contract worked in. Ausberry, Ballard, Carmouche, who were all part of this press conference on Friday, all were pretty much in unison saying, no, that's not been something that has been discussed. Ausberry said he's talked with the board of supervisors. He's talked with a lot of the big decision makers that are going to be, I guess I'll continue using this phrase, footing the bill for this next head coach, and that has not been something that will be a deterrent for them. So they're going to have, I don't want to say they're going to have a blank check, but they're going to have the resources required to go out and find the best coach for this position. And I think that's certainly their intention here over the next several weeks and possibly months. We'll see how long this process takes. But I think for me, one of the things that you want to see kind of transpire here is maybe not have an idea of who you're going to hire as your next athletic director, but if you can get to a position here where you think that you have an idea of what that process could look like with your AD, I think that only helps in your messaging to these coaching candidates. And certainly I think it also depends on who this next president's going to be as well, and what his input will be on whether or not Ausberry is the one who will be the eventual kind of long-term future at AD, or if there's going to be somebody else or a group of someone else's that he wants to interview for that job. So that's kind of my spiel here on where I kind of see things right now. I think it was important for LSU to come out today and try to put out some of these fires, try to put out some of these, some of the panic maybe that's kind of arisen this week as you kind of have moved forward through the week with the coaching conversations, with all the conversations around the athletic director and just kind of who's in charge and who's really running the ship here. And I think it was important for them to come out and say a lot of what they were able to today. I will say, just in watching the press conference, there were a little bit of I would describe uncomfortable moments where they gave some pretty short answers and they just weren't exactly going to give you all the information all at once, which is totally it's expected. And I think the way that this has been kind of dealt with throughout the entirety of this week, a lot of it has just been so fast moving, right? And so I think even inside the building and inside some of these conversations, they're still looking for answers and still trying to figure out what the best path forward here is for LSU. But sounds like LSU has an idea of where they want to go with this next. It sounds like the president's going to be involved, or the president of the next president of the university will be having a voice in this, but they're full go ahead. Like they are making their rounds. They're starting this process off, I think, and in the hopes that they can get something done sooner rather than later. And I think many people are going to wonder who are some of those top candidates, and would those top candidates want to come to a place that is still very much up in the air right now in terms of its future, of who's running the show and what kind of role politics will have in the future of LSU athletics. And I think those are very fair questions to have right now. I think from to Jeff Landry a little bit, he has vehemently denied that he will be any part of this decision-making process from here going forward. I think he says he wants to take a look at this next contract, whoever that might be that LSU decides to pull the trigger on. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to note that he also said yesterday or on Thursday afternoon in one of his interview sessions with Matt Moscona of 104.5 ESPN that he would be okay if they get the approval from the Tiger Athletic Foundation, from the donors, the private donor base, if they want to be the ones that are going to be fully investing and funding this next head coaching search, which by all accounts that's going to be the case, and the Ballard and Ausberry and all these guys essentially said that and reaffirmed it in the press conference on Friday that will be the case. That he will back that he's okay with that. Like the governor is okay with as long as this is not being put on the taxpayers, it's not being put on the people of Louisiana, which I don't think it ever was, but it was just an important clarification moment here that he would not interfere in that way. And so I think that's at least something for you there that that hopefully they come to an agreement here with the coach and the best candidate possible, and that they're going to let the decision makers be the decision makers throughout all of this. So we'll continue to keep you guys in tune with what's going on right now and what's going on in the future with LSU athletics. We've got a big time game between LSU and Alabama that we've got to start prepping for here as well. The Tigers have gone home for a little bit of a break here, and during the open date, they're going to have a few days back with their families, and then they'll be back in practice on Monday, getting ready for this showdown with the Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa this time next week. So, we'll have all the coverage for you guys. We'll be able to break it all down for you. But until then, my name is Glen West. Thanks for watching and listening to the Go 24/7 podcast.